Yes, good afternoon. This is Dr. Knoll, and I'm going to give you some quick review on the actual case study that we're looking at here for the next 2 weeks. The first part of this is that it's an individual project. So now that you've selected your group and your group has selected a case, you will be completing basically what we talked about, the first part of the case study. So you will be doing, it'll start out with the problem statement, which I actually have listed here as part B. And that problem statement should clearly identify any of the issues there are, both primary and secondary. Also, it should include things like the root cause of those problems. So you're going to really take a look at that, identify problems, identify secondary issues, and whatever the deep root of that issue is, you should be looking to solve for that. You'll see a lot of my comments were of that type of nature in the feedback from the last case study. The second portion of this assignment this week is going to be establishing a baseline. So talking about where your company is at this point. So whatever the case is that you've got, you're going to be given an evaluation of kind of an assessment of where the company is right today, and as it relates to your problem. And then you're also going to identify potential articles that would be, that possibly might have some solutions to that. In that case, I'm looking for probably somewhere along the lines of 3 to 5 articles. Not super substantial, but either 3 to 5 articles, depending on how you're looking to address that issue. Because those articles will come into play next week in your team study. So then we're looking at that. After that, as an individual, you'll then basically take a look at assigning some goals that would address your problem. Looking for those potential solutions and take a look at those based on the articles and your previous research. So then that completes the individual portion of this assignment. And the individual part of this assignment then would become, this is what you'll be taking forward into next week. But you will post it right here under the individual portion of the case study here. You'll post that and you'll stop at that point. You do not have to include the articles, just need to reference them in the properly cited area, and make sure that you're tying the articles throughout your case study. Refer back to them when you're talking about SMART goals and solutions for the most part. Those are definitely things that you should be identifying and should be referring back to. Now, going into next week, in week 6, where we can see here would be, this is what we're going to be looking at here, which is looking at the actual team portion of this. Now, if you look at the team portion, you'll see the first ones here are, the first is establishing a baseline, problem definition, and courses of action. Those are what you're actually doing right now, okay, or the goals and the goal setting, excuse me. Okay, those who came in from your individual ones. Now that you've got, 3 or 5 individual assessments, then what you're going to need to do as a group is come together, meet, and hash out a course of action, okay, based on your course of action and recommendations. You all have goals, okay, that you stated in the first 2. So the first 2 sections here, you're going to take right from where you're at. Your problem, your baseline, those things are going to come from your individual ones. Now, where it might deviate from that is where you're looking at when you get into, you created goals, okay, and in your first individual section. So now you're going to take that and get together and see how all of your goals mesh together. If they're all the same, then fine, you just address those goals with the appropriate references, again, in the APA format. Don't have to include articles, you just need to include the references. Now, as you're going forward through this, you're looking at making a team recommendation for the best course of action and a team recommendation for some other courses of action that could go through there. So you're going to want to detail out probably at least 3 courses of action, okay, and then prioritize those as to which one is the most important that you would act on first, and then second and third, all the way on. Then what you do is you describe those, okay, those courses of action. Then you're going to want to actually take a look and get these really specific. Probably at least 3 courses of action. And as you can see from the examples down in here, if we look at it through here, creating an employee survey, that doesn't tell me anything. You've got to really be a lot more specific than that. And some of you have seen that in my feedback. Okay, so you would, in an appropriate wording of that would be creating an employee survey measuring satisfaction and employee engagement that is conducted twice a year and compare progress. That's an acceptable explanation of an action item. Okay, restructure the organization. Okay, that doesn't really tell me anything. But you need to be stating it in terms of, okay, creating business units, realigning the structure. We are too linear, too horizontal, or too vertical. We're going to move to a more horizontal structure, outlining departments that are going to be linear. This is going to occur over the next 6 months. It's going to over the next year. Okay, training employees is not a good action plan. You want to kind of put them in terms of what kind of training you're going to apply to them and how often. How is that going to be completed? So this last section is going to be very, very specific. You want it to be specific. Okay, you want it to be able to bring all those recommendations forward as if you were the consultant for this company and you are going to propose this as what they're going to be doing. So as you go forward, then you're going to combine that. The last step of this, after you've decided your action plan, you've planned it all out, then you're going to put those together. So you're going to have the first part of the paper, which is going to have still your baseline and your problem statement that you created, and then you're going to go into the possible courses. You're going to come on your courses of action, going to prioritize those, you're going to make recommendations, and then you're going to list on those action type of items, being real specific. The goals section may or may not change depending on what you decide as a group. You could go with the ones, if you all came up with the same goals, then you don't have to change them. If you all came up with different ones and you want to prioritize those goals in different ways or formats, then yes, you might have some updating to do to your individual section. And then you bring all those together and post that paper, making sure that it's all in an APA format. Do not need title page. You don't really need to have a table of contents or an abstract. Just kind of lay it out there with the running header and those types of things, and making sure that you have a properly cited APA page, because you're not using the aspect of the articles this time around. So all of those you should be referencing those throughout your paper as references. Now you can see the recommendations here that you have, a couple pages on the baseline, a couple pages in your problem definitions that you should have already came in with, and then 3 pages on your actions for your total paper. So you should actually have at least, if you've got 5 pages in the front, you probably should have at least 3 pages in the back part of it. So for a total of probably somewhere at a minimum of 5 to 6 pages for each of you to turn in. Now 3 of those pages should have been turned in before. 3 to 4 of those should already have been there from before. So you should be working on those pretty individually. The last part of this is that I will be posting out later this week a team rubric. And that teamwork per rubric will be, everybody will complete that and submit that with your team portion here. So it will be submitted in the Dropbox that you put up here, right here. You'll be able to upload 2 forms with that. So you'll have you'll be uploading your full document with your teamwork, with your team's work in it, okay, individually, combined with your individual stuff that you brought in from the week before. And then the second file that you're going to upload is going to be this team work rubric, which is going to be the aspect where you're going to quickly basically give me feedback on what the participation was within your group. I'll use that for 10% of the final team portion grade that I will be using to be able to evaluate how well you did in the project as far as working together. I obviously can't do that, so I'm going to expect your feedback to come from you. So that'll be just a straight Excel sheet where you'll be able to jot down numbers, and then you'll be able to give me basically on a 1 to 5 scale, and then you'll be able to give me a place to write your feedback and your critique of your fellow group members. And if you guys have any questions at all on this going forward, just feel free to reach out to me, and then I'll be glad to answer those whenever I can. All right, I appreciate it, and I hope everybody has a great day.